Before we start, I'm going to be honest, during the filming process of this season, and we were getting behind the scenes photos, this seemed to be the episode I was going to enjoy the least. It seemed to be your atypical mid-season return to present-day Earth story. Unit coming back didn't particularly excite me, and it seemed to be not only a Dr. Light story, but also retreading a lot of ground from stories like The Sound of Drums, so I wasn't excited for this one. That is until we started getting promotional material. We got the title animated cards, which made this one look a lot more inside number 9 than I was expecting, and we got a few more details as to why the Doctor might potentially not be here. So, was I wrong to judge this episode prematurely? Well, the answer is a definitive yes, I was completely wrong. This was amazing, for the most part, which I'll get back to. I want to say that I kind of owe Russell a bit of an apology, not only for prejudging the episode, but because this was the first episode that I didn't have an opportunity to watch it first thing in the morning, I kind of decided to watch some of the reviews first, and as a result it made me a little less eager to watch it, because everyone was complaining that there was too many plot holes, it was too confusing. But I think actually having all the warning ahead of time, I really enjoyed this episode. Not only for Millie Gibson's standout performance and getting to see her in this tense situation where everyone in her life abandons her and she has to carry the story all by herself, but I also want to give props to the directing, the editing. Some of the plot holes I do think were actually explained pretty well. Well, maybe not plot holes, but certain questions that people weren't sure about. Like, there was an editing choice that made it quite clear that Roger Ap Gwilliam was Mad Jack. I think we overestimated how much this story needed to explain what was going on, after Chibnall being a bit too on the nose with exposition. A story that's a little more vague and doesn't have every question answered was a bit of a shock. I think ultimately what made me love this episode and made me put aside all my questions of where did the Doctor go, and of course, what exactly was the woman saying to everyone. The second I realised that this could potentially be a metaphor for Ruby's fear of abandonment and never finding out why, then I completely fell in love with this story. Because the idea of there being something so terrible about her that everyone in her life would abandon her if they found that out, that is very ridiculous, but it's not an unearned fear. We know why she feels that way because of what her mother did to her, her birth mother, and using the fairy tale logic that Doctor Who is now implementing, I can see how that might come into play, and ultimately the moral of the story is to not let that fear consume her, otherwise she'd end up alone. It's a very relatable fear for some people, and not only does it confirm that I really like Ruby, but it also made me hope that when we eventually get the reveal of who her parents are, I'm hoping they're going for something like Meet the Robinsons, where we never find out who they actually are. Instead, she learns to embrace the fact that she's not going to know, and who they are doesn't matter to her, rather than something gimmicky like she's the daughter of the Rani or the Trickster or whatever. As I said, this episode sadly isn't perfect, because once again, pacing and tone has let this era down. I think the genre shift and Ruby learning to accept her shadow, both plot points make sense, but I think they happen far too quickly, and therefore it might not be as satisfying for others. But let me know what you think, because this is easily my favourite of the series so far. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for my thoughts on Dot and Bubble.